Hello everybody, today I am here to talk all about the Wild series by K.A. Tucker. So if you didn't know, The Simple Wild came out in 2018 and she just released her sequel to this book called Wild at Heart. I don't own it, well I own an ebook, but I need to buy a physical copy, and I thought I think this was in a mashup review I did a couple years ago, but I haven't really reviewed it yet, and I finished Wild at Heart and I was like, I really want to talk about it, and I wanted to just hash it all out. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about the Wild series by K.A. Tucker. So this book got really popular in 2018. A lot of people read it, including myself, and a lot of people fell in love with it, including myself. So I was very, very excited that she announced last year that she was going to make a sequel for it, because I just love this first book so much, and I don't think any of us were expecting a sequel. There's usually not a lot of sequels with romances and, you know, adult contemporary. So whenever there is, I'm like, yes, I need it 1000%. So I'm going to talk to you about what the first book is about in case you haven't read it, or in case you want to read it and you want to learn more about it. And then I will talk about Wild at Heart. When I get into that section, I will be talking about spoilers, obviously, because it is a sequel. And basically, I'm just going to tell you why you should read the series, because I love it. I really do. It's one of my favorite adult, like, contemporary romance series. I just adore it a ton. At Heart, we follow a character named Kala, and Kala lives in Toronto, Canada, and she lives with her mom and her stepdad, and she has a great relationship with them. She lives at home, and she kind of parties all the time, and then she learns that her dad is dying, and he's not doing very well, and her dad lives in Alaska, in a really remote part of Alaska, and she's never had a relationship with her dad. Her mom actually left her dad when Kala was very young, because she lived in Alaska and she felt like she was alone all the time, and she just didn't want that. So she kind of moved her and Kala away to Canada to start a new life. And now, since Kala has learned that her dad has, you know, not doing well, she's never had a very good relationship with him, she decides, you know, maybe I should go visit him in Alaska and learn about him and things like that. So this book is just that. She, you know, moves to Alaska for some months, and she meets her dad, who is who owns this company called Wild, and he is a charter pilot. And she also meets this guy named Jonah, who works for her dad, and he's a rugged and kind of broody pilot who does not like Kala at all at first. It's definitely a hate to love romance, and it's just about Kala discovering Alaska, getting into a relationship with her father and learning about him, and kind of working on that severed bond they have, and also about her relationship with Jonah, with the hate to love that's eventually going to grow to love, obviously. And yeah, that is what this book is about. I loved it. I am a sucker, and I think a lot of people are, for Alaska books. I read this one, and then I read The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna, which are both in Alaska. Then I read another book in Alaska, and I just love books about Alaska. I will never move there because I could not take it. But something about Alaska just enamors me, how the days are so short and the winters are very brutal there, and wildlife and bears, and just, you know, Alaska is very remote, a lot of it. But there's a lot of Alaska that's not remote. And I just loved watching Kala's transformation, because at the beginning of this book, Kala is materialistic, and she, you know, has to have certain things, and she's used to a certain lifestyle, and when she goes to Alaska, none of that's there. You know, it's desolate. There's, like, not malls and not shopping areas, and, you know, doesn't have her specialty food that she likes, and she just has to learn, you know, she kind of just changes. She kind of becomes less materialistic. She becomes more open to her and her dad, and she really grows tremendously in this book, which is what I love about it. You know, Cal at the beginning, I don't think you're gonna like her. You're gonna be like, ugh, you know, Cal's not the best, materialistic, kind of a little bit of, like, just kind of a little bit high maintenance, and all that stuff. And just watching her kind of change throughout the book was just amazing. Also, the romance in this, spot on. My favorite trope in romance is hate to love. I will never get sick of that trope ever. So the fact that, you know, Jonah and Kala really bashed heads at the beginning of this book, they just kind of despised each other, but as the book goes on, the relationship becomes friends, and then it becomes something more, and it's just a beautiful story. I also really loved the relationship with Kala and her dad. You know, you think of her dad one way as you start out the book, because, you know, he just let his wife and daughter leave and all this stuff, and then you learn more about him, and then you just watch this beautiful relationship between Kala and her dad blossom, and the fact that he's sick and he's not doing well, it's just so heartbreaking. But goodness, it's just, I don't know. Every time a book is set in Alaska, I always say Alaska's like a character in the book because it's just so beautifully written, and the way Alaska is, it's like its own character. So I love The Simple Wild. I believe I gave it a 4 out of 5. I might bump it up to a 5 just because I just love it and I think about it constantly. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and bump it up to a 5 out of 5. I read it 2 years ago, but you can change your ratings anytime you want, right? So I'd say if you're a big fan of romance, definitely check this out. If you're a big fan of Alaska and wilderness and kind of survival and things like that, I would definitely check this out. If you're a fan of like just family books where it's kind of strained at first and then they work on it, check it out. Character growth. This book has it all, honestly. I love it. K.A Tucker is very vastly underrated in my opinion. She usually writes a lot of new adult stuff. I consider this adult. That's just me. Cal is like 25, 26 in this book. But I love her books. I've read several of them before. This one is definitely my favorite by her, and I love The Simple Wild. So highly recommend checking it out. So now let's talk about Wild at Heart, the sequel to this. So I don't know which one I liked more. Like, I did not think I would love Wild at Heart as much as I did, but it's completely different than The Simple Wild. The Simple Wild has all of this, you know, the hate to love, you know, that if you love hate to love romance, it's got that kind of, you know, burning passion that's like kind of hate building up, and you're just like, I can't wait to see this explode till they finally give in to their feelings and admit they like each other. And that's there, the intensity's there. And the intensity's there. Wild at Heart is about Jonah and Cala's relationship, and they don't have to deal with that kind of, you know, hate to love because they love each other. And it's just really focuses on their relationship, the ups and downs of it. And I thought it was a true portrayal of a really good and healthy relationship, honestly, which we don't get a lot in some books, but I really love the dissection of the relationship and how they both handled themselves. It was just amazing. So, you know, The Simple Wild is really good for that hate to love, really angsty kind of romance. And then Wild at Heart is really what you do when you're in a relationship, in a committed relationship, yet you kind of both want different things, but you want to be with each other. And how do you work that out? How do you, how do you give and take? Every relationship has a give and take. You have to sometimes, you know, compromise a lot. And that book, and Wild at Heart is all about that. It's about learning how to be in a relationship while trying to make your partner happy and yourself happy, and how to balance that. And I loved how K.A Tucker did that. So I don't know. I just wanted to talk about that briefly before I got into spoilers, because I just wanted to tell you how they were a little bit different. So I'd say if you are expecting a lot of like super steamy times and angsty stuff, Wild at Heart really doesn't do that. It's more about a relationship and kind of how Cala is changing even more in this relationship and how she and Jonah are working it out. And yeah, so that's what it's about. So moving on to spoilers now, like I said, Wild at Heart picks up, I think, a couple months after The Simple Wild. Pretty much Cala is living in Canada. At the end of The Simple Wild, Cala moved back to Canada and Jonah visits her and he's like, I can't be without you. Like, we need to work something out. Like, I can't do this. And so at the beginning of Wild at Heart, Jonah is heading back to Alaska after his, you know, trip to Canada to tell her all this, and she's like, you know, I'll come down in a few months. I'll come down and, you know, let's try this, but you have to promise that if I don't like it, we can move. And he's like, you know, as long as you try, like, you know, wherever you are, I want to be. So they're both willing to work on this relationship and they want to be together no matter what. So pretty much Cala moves to Alaska. They move to a different part of Alaska. They buy a house together, and it's like a house they have to really like work on because the owner like leaves everything in the house that was his. Like, he just moves out just himself. And so they have to like clean it up. They have to fix it up. Cala is buying a lot of things for the house because her dad left her a lot of money after he passed away, and they have to deal with that. They've also started their own charter company where Jonah is the pilot. The company's called the Yeti, and Cala is in charge of like marketing and doing the invoices for it and things like that. She feels a little bit at place at Alaska because she has something to do. But Jonah also wants to, you know, be a firefighter, I guess, or fight brush fires, forest fires, and things like that. And it's taking him away a lot more than Cala expected. So Cala feels alone a lot in Alaska. And, you know, being alone in Alaska is hard because it's so remote and things like that. And so this book is all about their relationship and how, you know, there's great highs and there's also really low lows. And I thought it was just a beautiful portrayal of a relationship. You know, they both had feelings of like kind of resentment and things they wanted to address, and they got into a couple fights, but they always talked to each other afterwards. After they simmered down, they talked to each other and they had fair points and they listened to each other and they really expressed how they felt. And I love that so much, because that is a true relationship. You talk to each other, you compromise, you listen, and you say, yeah, I was wrong, you were wrong, we both were wrong, let's work on this. You know, it was just, they were very mature. I thought it was great. There were a couple times where, you know, either of them were not mature, but that's any relationship. But I thought the way they are together, it's just beautiful. They really work on each other. You know, K.A gave up pretty much everything to move to Alaska to be with Jonah, and she was really losing herself because she was by herself. She was gardening. She was doing all these things that she didn't really want to do. She had no desire to do. And then Jonah's eventually like, I want you to do things that you want to do, not because you think that I want you to do them. I think she thought, you know, if I cook and I do all the stuff, Jonah wants me to do all that. And he really doesn't want her. He wants her to find whatever makes her happy in Alaska, whatever it will be. And I really love that. Sometimes I think in relationships, in any relationship, people try to please the other person in the relationship because they think it's what they want. But they don't, you know, sometimes you don't know that. You have to talk to them. You have to, but I loved how just basically Jonah wanted K.A to be happy. K.A wanted Jonah to be happy. They really cared about each other and each other's needs. Yes, Jonah works a lot and he was working on that, and he knows that he was away too much and things like that. And I just really loved the relationship. I also loved Roy in this book. Roy is like their neighbor by like a couple miles, and he's very kind of just a grump, and he's had a lot of things happen to his past, and him and K.A develop a friendship that blossoms, and it's just really beautiful to read. And it's all about K.A finding her place in Alaska and how she loses herself a little bit, and she loses herself in this relationship, loses herself in Alaska. And I loved Wild at Heart. My gut rating is 5 out of 5, honestly. I gave the first one 5 out of 5. I mean, they're two totally separate things. One's about the very beginning of a relationship, or like getting to it with this like animosity and angst and romance building up, and the second one is already developed it, and the second one's already has a relationship that's developed, and just working on that relationship, being with each other, and just knowing that this is going to be the person you spend the rest of your life with. Like, I loved how assured Jonah was in the second book of like, I'm going to be with you forever. I want to be with you forever. You are the one. And how he realized maybe that they were moving too fast because he wanted kids right now and she didn't want kids, and it's just compromised, and I love that so much. So yeah, I need to stop gushing. I just really enjoyed it, honestly. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. I thought it was just going to be another steamy, cute stuff, and yes, it had steamy times in it, but it was just really about a relationship, and I thought a healthy relationship at that. So I loved it, honestly. I've seen the reviews on Goodreads. A lot of people are 4s and a lot of people are 5s. I think that's a great rating. I loved it. Highly recommend it. So if you want a great series that has romance, steaminess, great family relationships, great friendships as well, and also just a really beautiful and blossoming relationship that has problems, yes, but they work on it, and they work on it with each other, I would highly recommend checking out this series. I don't think she's going to write any more of this, and I'm okay with that because I love the way it wrapped up, but if she wants to write more, I will always read about Jonah and K.A. That is for sure, because I love them so much, and I really want to visit Alaska. Visit, not live. But anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts if you've read The Simple Wild and Wild at Heart, what you thought of it. Did you like one better than the other? Did you like Wild at Heart at all? I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.